Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play one of my favorite tunes, Puff the Magic Dragon. So with this arrangement, we have it split into two sections. So the first time through, you're going to be playing the melody, but it's fingerpicked. And then the second time through, you're going to be playing the melody again, but incorporating strumming into the mix. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, where you get finger picking and strumming. Now, overall, I think this is going to be best suited for the seasoned beginner. And the reason why is that it has a few more advanced beginner techniques, things that you start working on a little bit later, not at the very beginning of your ukulele journey. So for example, it's got some bar chords in there, and it also has a melody that is a bit syncopated. So what that means is that when we are playing a rhythm that's syncopated, we have hits that are off the beat. So you know when you learned eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and every end was an upbeat. So think of it like that. A syncopation means that we're not hitting on the down, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're hitting on the up. Now, even though there is some syncopation and it can be a little tricky at times, remember that this is a song you've probably heard a million times, and as soon as you hear the song, what do you start doing? You probably start singing it. That's what I do. And so I want you guys to approach it by ear. So anytime while you're going through the lesson, if you feel a little overwhelmed by some of the syncopated rhythms that you're going to see on the screen, just remember that if you can sing it, you can play it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this lesson, you guys are going to learn the entire song. Now, if you do want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for Puff the Magic Dragon. Also on that page will be the on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a really great asset in learning this song that much easier. So before I hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this tune, I want to give you guys a couple lessons that will help with learning this tune. So I mentioned earlier about bar chords being in this tune. So if you are new to bar chords, then check out this lesson. It's going to be all about proper left hand form. And that means not just what's happening in front of the neck, but also what's happening behind the neck. Now, secondly, syncopated rhythms, we talked about that. Playing off the beat can be a little bit tricky. So you can approach it by playing by ear, da, 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 da. So if you can sing it, you can play it. But it's also good to look at it from a rhythmic standpoint. So if you're completely new to understanding rhythms, counting rhythms, basic things like quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, I'm going to drop a link to an introductory lesson to understanding rhythmic notation in the description box below. But there is no better way to really understand how rhythm and timing connect than to learn to read standard notation. So that link will take you to our in-depth course that teaches you how to read music on ukulele. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this, and then I'll see you at the end of the lesson.
This week we're going to learn a solo instrumental arrangement of Puff the Magic Dragon. This is fantastic for a more beginner player. The first half is very approachable, and then the second half gets a little bit more challenging with some strumming. But overall the arrangement I think sounds really good, and really enjoyed working on this one. Let's go ahead and dive right in. To start here, we're going to play an A chord. The song's actually in the key of A, which is not a very common key for us to play instrumentals on the uke with. But we're going to start here with our middle finger on the second fret of the G string, index finger on the first fret of the C string. We're then going to strum through all four strings with our thumb. Then we're going to play the open A 3 more times. So that measure in time sounds something like this. 2, 3, 4. Going right into the next measure, we're going to be moving to our first bar chord of the song. You can actually take your index finger and slide it up to bar across the 4th fret of the C, E, and the A, and then add your ring finger here to the 6th fret of the G string, creating a C sharp minor chord. Now, if you're more comfortable with your index finger barring all the way across, that's okay, but I actually prefer to have just the 4 on the C, E, and the A. Now with this C minor chord, we're going to play our G, C, and E strings, and we're actually going to stop before we play the A string. So we're going to strum through stopping on that A string with our thumb. And then we're going to play the 4 on the C by itself, all with the thumb. So that measure in time is something like this: 2, 3, 4. And now measures 1 and 2 together should sound something like this when played in time: 2, 3, 4. Going right into measure 3, we're going to play a D chord. And this is a challenging chord because this way of playing D is using only our index finger to bar across the G, C, and E strings, making sure that we're using right here where the little divot of your knuckle is to kind of go right on that E string to bend off so that your A string can ring open. This takes a lot of practice and a lot of flexibility, so it's okay if you use your 3-finger D with your index here on the 2nd fret of the G, middle here on the 2nd fret of the C, and ring on the 2nd fret of the E. It's okay to do that if you're struggling with this, but I really recommend practicing it. And the reason for that is you only need 1 finger, and you can actually just slide down to that D with your index as you're coming up and over. It's kind of neat. So open A, but the 2 on the G, C, and E. We're going to start by strumming the G, C, and E with our thumb. Then we're going to play the open A twice. So that measure in time is something like this: 2, 3, 4. Now going into the next measure, we're going to go back to that A chord that we played at the beginning. Middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the G string, index finger here on the 1st fret of the C. You'll notice that when you're coming from that D chord, you essentially just pivot the finger down to that 1 on the C. We're going to play our G, C, and E strings together there, and then our open E string. So that measure in time is something like this: 2, 3, 4. Now measures 3 and 4 together should sound something like this: 2, 3, 4. Now, if you actually hear bars 1 through 4 together, you really start to get a feel for this song. So here's what bars 1 through 4 sound like: 2, 3, 4. Now, as we go into measure 5 here, we're going to introduce a new technique. You'll notice we're going to play the same D chord we did before, so the index finger barred across the G, C, and E strings, coming up so that the open A is exposed. But we're going to do an up strum, stopping on the C string. And the reason for this is our melody note is on the C string here, and if we just strum the chord, it gets lost. So by finishing on that note, we can ensure that we're highlighting that melody note, and by strumming up and stopping on that note, we can really enunciate it. So there's 2 ways of doing this. One is with your strumming hand using your index finger and coming up, and just stopping prior to playing the G string. The other way you can do it is if you have a bit of a thumbnail, is doing the same sort of motion coming up here and then stopping on the G string. Both ways work. I like to use both depending on what sort of sound I'm looking for. But at the beginning of 5, we're going to start with that up strum. And then we're going to pluck the 2 on the C with our thumb, going back to our normal thumb picking. Still holding this, we're going to add the ring finger on 4 of the C, and then take it back off for 2 on the C. So a pretty tricky measure, but in time it should sound something like this: 2, 3, 4. Right? As you're going through that, it's really easy to get tripped up a little bit. So when you come up, it's okay for your thumb to be right there ready to go if you're using the index finger to make that motion. It's also okay if you find it easier using your index to come up and then pluck the 4 on the C with the index too. It's totally fine. As long as you're playing those notes in time, that's what really matters. So if you're using the thumb or the index, or the combination. Kind of neat, right? So now as we go into measure 6, we're going to keep using this technique, that up strum technique. This time we're going to fret our A chord, and we're going to strum up and stop on the C string. And then we're going to play the open E. Then we're going to play a new chord, an F sharp minor. We leave our A chord where it is and just take the ring finger and stack it on the 2nd fret of the E string, strum through all 4 strings. Then we'll play the open A twice. So measure 6 is something like this. 2, 3, 4. Right? So when you're working on that, it's really critical to get the fingers involved so that you don't feel like you're tripping up at it. So practicing it slow and steady is the secret to being able to do it quickly. So now measure 5 and 6 together should sound something like this. Nice and slow. So 2 and 3 and 4 and. As we go into measure 7, we're going into the first ending of this part. So with this first ending, we're going to play a new chord, B7. We're going to take our ring finger, place on the 4th fret of the G string, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the C, index finger on the 2nd fret of the E string, strum through all 4 with our thumb. And we're going to play the 2 on the E, take our pinky, add it here on the 4 of the E, then the open A. You'll notice I keep the fingers on so that I can keep that harmony, that chord to continue to ring. So that in time sounds something like this. 2, 3, 4. And now as we go into measure 8, we're going to play an E7 chord. So all that we need to do to make this E7 is take our B7, take our ring finger off, and our index finger off, slide the middle down to the 2nd fret of the C string, then add the ring on 2 of the A and the index here on 1 of the G. And we're going to strum through all 4 for measure 8. And that's going to be counted 2, 3, 4 for the full measure. So measure 8 in time sounds something like this. 2, 3, 4. Now from here, it repeats and it goes back to the beginning of the song, back to measure 1. So after we play that E7, we're then going to go back to measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, measure 4, Now what I just played there was measure 7 and 8 for that whole first ending. After you've played through this and go back through again, we'll then skip to the second ending for the second time. But just so that we can hear this, I'm going to play these in time and count them and go all the way through until we would get to the second ending. So that should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. To the repeat. Now at this point, I just completed measure 6 with the repeat. So now we go to the second ending. And on the second ending here at measure 9, we're going to go to the same B7 chord, so still the 4, 3, 2, 0 with our ring, middle, and index fingers. Same thing that we did before, only now we're going to play just the G, C, and E strings, stopping at the A, and then playing the A, followed by the same E7 chord, but this time up strumming the E7 with our thumb or index through all 4 strings, then the 2 on the A. And that's all of measure 9, which should sound something like this in time. 2, 3, 4. And now from this point, we go into the next part of the second ending, which is an A chord, followed by an E7 up strum. each for 2 beats. So that sounds like this in time. 2, 3, 4. And measures 9 and 10 in time should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. Now at this point we go into measure 11. Measure 11 is starting the second part of the song, and this is where we start strumming the melody, which makes it quite a bit more difficult. So if you find that the first half of the song is challenging, you might want to continue practicing it because you're going to have to be really comfortable with the left hand before you go on to this next section. Now, when we look at it, you can see these little symbols. This symbol here, the symbol that's going to be a down strum, symbolizes that you should use your index finger to strum down over the strings. And this symbol here, the little V-like symbol, is telling you to do an up strum. So whenever you see that down motion or that up motion, it's telling you to use your index to either go down or come up. If there's no marker written, that means to use your thumb like we have been before. So looking at measure 11, we're going to start with some strumming. We're going to do a down strum on our A chord that we've been playing. And then we're going to do what's called a ghost note strum. So you'll notice the strum marker's still here, but this time it has just the G string played, which means you want to use your thumb on your strumming hand to just hit that G. So we're going to do a down, and then we're going to do a ghost note, followed by up, down, and then another down. As a quick tip, whenever you're strumming, you cannot go down and then down again. You have to come back up before you go down. But the kicker is you don't have to strike the strings. So when you see 2 down strums in a row, it doesn't mean to go down and then down again. It actually means to go down, come up missing the strings, and then go down again. So measure 11 is really going down, miss, ghost note, up, down, miss, down, miss. And when we count that in time, it's something like this. 2, 3, 4. Going into 12, we're going to slide into our C sharp minor chord that we played earlier, exactly the same way. Then we're going to use our thumb to just play the 4 on the G string. Then we're going to follow this with a down, up with the index finger. And then we're going to use our thumb to play just the 4 on the C string, followed by a down strum with the index. Now these strums here, you want to do a little bit quieter because they're not actually the melody, they're more filler. But this measure is really fun to play because you're going and alternating between picking and strumming. So in time, measure 12 should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And in time, measure 11 and 12 should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. Going into 13, we're going to go to our D chord that we were playing earlier. Same way with the open A. We're then going to use our thumb to strum through the G, C, and E strings because there's no strum marker here. And then we're going to do a ghost note, up, and then we're going to come up again, followed by a down. So that's going to be through the thumb, ghost note, up, miss going down, up, down. Just like you can't do 2 down strums in a row, you can't do 2 up strums in a row. When you come up, you must go back down, and you just want to make sure that you're missing the strings because there's no marker written to make a strum on that. So measure 13, nice and slow, is something like this. 2, 3, 4. And now we go into 14. We're going to go to an A chord, as we've been playing throughout the song. We're going to strum through with our thumb on the G, C, and E strings. And then we're going to go ghost, up, down. Then we're going to play the open E by itself. So that measure, again, hybrid between picking, thumb picking, and strumming. So measure 14 in time is something like this. 2, 3, 4. Now measure 13 and 14 together should sound like this in time. 2, 3, 4. and measures 11 through 14 so that you can really get the sense of how the strum part works. These 4 bars should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. Going right into 15, we're going to go back to our D chord. And this is actually one of my favorite bars of the song, because we're going to play our D chord, play just the 2 on the C by itself with our thumb. Then we're going to do a down strum. And then we're going to add the ring finger on 4 of the C while still holding that chord on the up strum. Do another up strum there. Then a down, taking that ring finger back off. Kind of a spicy thing there, because we're still holding that D and just adding a second finger. So 15 again should be 2 on the C, down strum, up, adding 4 on the C with the ring, miss, then up, then down, taking that ring back off. In time, it sounds something like this. 2, 3, 4. As we go into 16, we're going to play an A chord, and this, I think, is the hardest measure of the whole song. The reason is it's going to be going between picking and strumming in a way that other parts haven't quite. So we're going to start here with the A chord. So the same way that we've been playing it, 2, 1, 0, 0, middle and index finger being used. We're going to take our thumb. We're going to play the 1 on the C. And as we do this, we're going to take our index finger and prepare it right here between the E and the A strings. Because after I do this 1 on the C, I'm going to then take the index and strum up. But as I do this up strum, I'm starting with the E string. And the reason is because the E string is the melody note here. And this allows me to really catch that string. Then I'm going to do a ghost note with the thumb, as I always do those ghost notes, and then an up on F sharp minor. So just that first little part of the measure should be something like. Really tricky to get all of those parts together, but really fun and satisfying when you have it. And then the other half of the measure is going to do another up, down, up, all on that F sharp minor chord. So in time, measure 16 should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And 16 with 15 preceding it should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And so you can really hear that sort of sound coming through. And again, it's really fun to play. It is a quite difficult part, but man, I just love the sound. And now from here, we're actually going to go into measure 17. And on measure 17, we're going to be playing the B7 chord that we played earlier. And then the 2 on the E, pinky on 4 of the E, followed by the open A. You'll notice that's exactly the same as what we played earlier in the song on measure 7. Same fingering, just a little bit different rhythm. So we're going to be going through all 4 strings. 2 on the E, 4 on the E, open A. In time, that should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And then it's going to go to an E7 chord, strum through with our thumb, followed by down, up, down, up. So a nice little rhythm fill at the end of that. In time, it's something like this. 2, 3, 4. Then from here, it's going to repeat back to measure 11. So let's hear what measures 11 through 18 sounds like. And then I'm actually going to make the repeat as well. I'm going to stop just prior to measure 19 to sort of wrap up the song. So measure 11 with the repeat should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. Repeat. right here, it goes to measure 19 at this point. And 19 through the end is actually pretty simple. 19 is going to be the same B7 chord, but this time we're going to play just our G, C, and E strings. Then we're going to play through all 4 strings. And that's that whole measure. So 2 beats without the A, 2 beats with all of them, including the A. In time, that's 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to do an E7 chord, same way that we've been playing it the whole way through the song, only now we're going to do that up strum again for 2 beats, then strum through with the thumb for another 2 beats. So in time, that one is 2, 3, 4. And then to wrap up the song, we're going to play an A chord. We're just going to let that ring for the entirety of that measure. So those last 3 measures in time should sound something like this. 2, 3, 4. And that is all of Puff the Magic Dragon. You'll notice that the melody is very similar between the A and B sections. If you listen to the original recording, it's actually kind of the same thing, just the lyrics are being changed up. So the equivalent for us is changing techniques and sounds and textures. So feel free to change it any way that you want and have fun with it. I think it's a very flexible tune and arrangement that you can do a lot of different things with. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the forums or in a comment down below. I look forward to seeing you guys for the next tutorial.
Alright guys, so I hope you had a lot of fun learning this tune. Super fun, always been one of my favorite tunes ever since I was a little kid. And I love how Matt arranged it, so it had finger picking and strumming, so the best of both worlds. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder, if you want to get the tabs to print off Keep for Your Records, that was available here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for Puff the Magic Dragon. Don't forget too, on that page was that interactive tab player. So the really cool tab player where you watch it scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars, you can loop sections, you can slow it down. Just a great tool for learning this song so much easier. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.